Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the January 28th, 2021 remote public meeting of the City of Gloucester Zoning Board of Appeals. Consistent with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and banning gatherings of more than 10 people, this meeting will be conducted by remote participation to the greatest extent possible. For the record, the meeting ID is 872-8274. 2495, and I recognize in attendance myself, Michael Nyman, Catherine Schlichty, Peter Canavo, and Adria Pratt, members of the zoning board, and I therefore declare we have a quorum. So we'll begin our opening hearing. Tonight is the petition of Amanda Marino seeking to amend existing variances for side yard, rear yard, and lot cut frontage to allow rebuilding a single-family home destroyed by fire and to incorporate existing sheds and carports into attached garages at 498 Washington Street. And I believe this is Attorney Favaza. I think Joel's trying to get in here.
Am I missing him? Oh, here he is. Okay.
Isn't he a participant? Yeah,
Yeah, I'm trying. Just give me a second. I just can't get to him for some reason. Okay. There he is.
Good evening. Let me just cue up my slideshow if that's okay. And if it's okay, I'm going to share my screen.
Yep.
Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Everyone able to see the red pointer coming across the screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well then we're in good shape. For the record, my name is Joel Favaza. I'm an attorney at Seaside Legal Solutions, 123 Main Street in Gloucester. I'm here on behalf of Amanda Marino. She is the owner of 498 Washington Street here in Gloucester. As mentioned, the proposed work is to rebuild a single-family home that was destroyed in a house fire, and also to convert the existing sheds and carports into attached garages. The technical background here, we are in the R10 district, which is the medium high density residential district. The lot is oversized but non-conforming. It lacks adequate frontage, but that was permitted by this board in 1989 through a variance. And the structure that was destroyed was non-conforming. It had a left side yard penetration of about 7 feet, which was allowed by variance in 1989, and a rear yard penetration of 20 feet by a variance in 1973. And I put an asterisk there because what was happening in 1973 is they were considering the edge of the upland to be the rear property line. But obviously this being waterfront property, the actual rear property line is the low water mark. And so tonight, as part of my request for amending the variances, I'm going to ask the board to make a determination that there is no rear yard penetration and therefore no rear yard variance is required. If you find the other way and want to use the upland as the rear yard, which is not what we do these days, to my knowledge, then we would need to amend the 20-foot variance also. There are 3 ZBA decisions in the packet. This was originally a cottage with a garage. 1973, they winterized the cottage into a year-round residence. That's the house that burned. In 1975, they converted the front garage to a year-round residence. It's now 496 Washington Street. In 1989, they separated the 2 lots into the lots that are in existence today. The Gelati family owned the property until summer 2019. This is Amanda Marino and her family. That's Brian Jr. and Jackson from left to right. They purchased it in June of 2019, and in summer of last year, I think it was the beginning of August, there was a house fire that resulted in a total loss. That's a picture from the water of the house actually while it was unfortunately burning. Fortunately, the family was not home, everyone was safe, but they did unfortunately lose their family pets. And as you can imagine, the family's anxious to get back home after a rebuild. 2020 was a weird year for everybody, but imagine trying to be quarantined at home when you have no home, right? So they're very anxious to try and get this put back together. The relief we're requesting, there is no special permit to alter and expand a non-conforming structure. I figured I'd talk about this proactively. The existing lot and the house are controlled by previously granted variances. So although they're non-conforming, they're not a quote unquote, previously existing non-conforming structure that requires a special permit to amend. Instead, what has to be amended are the variances to allow for the new design versus the old design that was in place when the variances were granted. There's no new nonconformities to the site. There's an expansion of the main house footprint to the northeast, which is to the right, but it's conforming. It's still over 27 feet from the lot line. And on the left side, they've held the 3.84 distance off the left side property line of the existing house. You'll see in the decisions, it called it 3 feet, but now that we have more accurate surveys of the property, it was actually almost 4 feet off the property line. The deck is expanding further out to the water. Again, that would only really matter if, from a dimensional standpoint, if we were counting the water as the rear yard line, which again, I'm gonna hope we're not gonna do tonight. And then the garage is actually pushed further from the left side of the property line in the present house, and also from the corners of the present sheds and garages. And this was again, just, trying to work within the confines of this lot, while also still trying to put a little space between the property line and the back of these garages, and increase space, even if only by a foot or two, wherever they could. So the relief we're requesting is a left side yard variance. Again, there's already one granted at 7 feet. This one would be amended to be 6.16 feet. So it's actually a reduction in the relief. Again, that corner isn't actually moving. It's where the old house was. We just have a better idea now, down to the 100th of a foot, where it actually was. Lot frontage, same thing. The lot frontage is 10.6 feet. So we need 54.4 feet. The previous was 55 feet. So again, we're not actually changing the frontage. We just found out the frontage is actually about half a foot wider than they thought it was back in 1989. And then the rear yard, right now, the true rear yard is about 190 feet away. The proposed would be about 175 feet away. And that's me rounding generously in either direction to make this as close as possible. And I would argue that the requested relief should be 0, even though there's a 20-foot variance on record from 1989. But if this board believes the 20-foot variance to be correct, then we'd ask for it again. And then, let's see. I have the full set of plans that were provided to you in the packet. This is the current condition plan. This is the proposed house on top of the current conditions. This is the floor plan. The red outline shows the existing house. These are the elevations. This is just a standalone site plan that's actually going over to the Conservation Commission that shows the resource areas. It's not necessarily germane, but I thought it was important to just include. And so as I mentioned several times, we're asking for variances, or rather to amend existing variances, but you still have to apply the same standards to grant the relief. So we talk about literal enforcement. Obviously, the lot frontage, if you literally enforce against the lot frontage, it becomes an unbuildable lot. It's been obviously in place for decades and used as a standalone lot since 1989, but enforcement would make it unbuildable. The left side yard, if you enforce that setback and jog the building over to the right, you run into two problems. One, you make these garages kind of inaccessible, and or you have to eliminate the garages altogether. But you have to remember, this house, unless they make it much taller, has no basement and has no attic. So these garages are pretty much the only storage that they're going to have, aside from a few closets that you can see in the floor plan and a few, larger rooms. But anything that you normally put in an attic or a basement has to go out in these garages, because there is no attic or basement with this house. And so you go, okay, well, how are those hardships related to the shape, soil, or topography of the lot? As for the frontage, it is what it is. We can't change it. There's no vacant land to the left or to the right to buy more frontage. And the left side yard, for those of you who went out to the site, you probably noticed it's incredibly steep. And so you need this long driveway to get down to the buildable portion. And then you have to kind of tuck these garages to the left so that you can swing in with the vehicle. If you center these garages or push them further to the right, as you're coming down the long driveway, you won't have the ability to maneuver a vehicle into them because the turn will be too tight. And so you go, okay, well, if we grant this relief, are we going to harm the public good? Are we going to go against the intent of the GZO? And so I would point out that the house is no closer to the side property line than the previous house was. The garages are no closer to the side property line than the existing sheds or carports were. In fact, they're a little bit further off. Again, it's not huge numbers, but it is an effort to push them as far off as they can while still having workable space. And the house is actually no taller than the existing house. It is higher above average grade, but the Florida roof distance on this house is about 21 feet, and that's what it is on the house that burned. The issue is that we have FEMA flood elevations. They're at an elevation 13 for flood zone, which means that the bottom level or the bottom habitable level of this structure has to come up to elevation 14. And right now the current structure is down around elevation 10. So to think of it another way, if their house had never burned down, but Amanda had wanted to do some significant renovations to it, FEMA still would have made her take that old house and jack it up 4 feet and put it on piles. And it would be just as tall as the proposed house itself. And so there's also this issue of orienting it to preserve neighborhood views. Obviously, this board is well aware that views are not a protected right unless they're a title issue. But nevertheless, Amanda just moved in 1.5 years ago. She hopes to be there a long time. She really wants to maintain a good relationship with her neighbors as best as possible. And so as you'll see in the next couple of slides, the position of this house is their attempt to make it as friendly as possible to the neighbors. You received in your packet signed petition of support from 502, 502R, 508, and 517 Washington Street. They're highlighted here. She reached out to more abutters. Those are the ones that responded. I have 496 in brown. I'll get to that in a moment. I'll get to it right now, actually. 496 is the remaining Gelati property. And Amanda had reached out to them and they weren't able to connect. I was able to connect with their son, James, who I believe is going to speak tonight. And there's a few little issues that they have, and we think we're going to work it out. So they're not, counted with the other group of support, but we're hopeful that we can work something out with them to get them on board. So I don't want to confuse anybody about that. This is just another perspective, again, kind of showing the orientation of where these houses are. This is obviously Amanda's old house before it burned. This is looking from the water. This is in the driveway that you all came down. Obviously 502 and 502R aren't actually shown in this picture, but for orientation purposes, you can see where the numbers are kind of showing their relative placement. And then there's 496, the house we just spoke about, up at the top of the driveway. And then this is just another one, again, showing how these houses, are fairly close together, but they're all sort of spread in a nice little orientation that maintains distance. I'll give them a little pointer out. And so this is obviously Amanda's house. You start playing with the movement of it and you start going, okay, let's jog the new one over. Well, now you start getting a little close to 502. Obviously 502, you're not necessarily violating the right side yard setback, which will allow you to get to within 10 feet. But 502R is a little close to the shared property line. So it's probably best to shift this over. Whereas on the properties to the southwest here, the house is tucked up by the road and the next house is 2 lots over. So by staying close to this property line, you're still pretty far away from any structures, and obviously the size of these lots and the topography and the existence of an already constructed house makes it unlikely that any structure could be built in the future in this area. And then obviously the Gelati house up here, their lower level looks out across the driveway and between these two houses. So you shift this house over, you start blocking their lower level view. If you push this all the way up far from the water, you start crowding them. And so this whole area right here is, kind of the sweet spot for the reconstruction of this house. And again, this is the shed and carport that are being converted into attached garages and attached to the proposed building. As I mentioned, we just spoke with those at 496. And so I hope that the chair will open this up for public testimony. Again, if neighbors will come out tonight expecting a public hearing, I hope they'd be given a chance to speak. Afterward, rather than rebut or respond, I think I'm going to request a continuance so we can work out those issues that were just brought to my attention about a half an hour ago. And obviously, if any other neighbors that we'd reached out to previously that we had not heard back from have any concerns, this is not a flip house. This is where Amanda wants to live with her family, and she wants to make sure that everyone's copacetic. So again, I hope that you'd still take testimony tonight from those who come out, but I will be requesting continuance to work out at least the issues with 496. And if anything comes up beyond that, we'll look at that also. So I will thank you for now, and I will stop the slideshow for now.
Thank you. Any questions at this point from the board?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to take the opportunity to explain how we look at rear yards on water now, currently, and for the last 20 years. I realized in this previous decision, there was a lot of discussion on what actually was the rear yard. However, prior to, at least since the last 20 years, as long as I've been doing this, we do not recognize if a rear yard abuts the water, a waterway, significant waterway, then we don't recognize it as being a rear yard. You can actually build right up to it. And the main reason for that is there's no neighbors behind it. And conservation has a lot of restrictions that do take care of anything that may come into a problem. So just to clarify that we don't recognize a rear yard when it's abutting one of the large bodies of water. Thank you.
thank you. Okay, for the public, we're going to have open a public hearing and take testimony. I ask anyone that's recognized to give your name and address for the record, and then tell us what you've got to say. We're going to begin with anyone that wishes to speak in favor of the application. You could please raise your hand. If you're on a phone, you dial *9. If you're on a computer, you just raise your hand. So we have a first hand up here. Berbusha. We could bring that one in. Hello?
Yeah, they're muted.
You need to unmute yourself. Can you hear us? We can't hear you if you're talking. Is anyone there, Berbusha?
Allison, can he talk? When I click over him, it says ask to unmute. I haven't seen that before. I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, it always says that. I've asked them to unmute themselves several times, but
So he's muted himself. Okay.
yes, that's exactly what that means.
Okay, well,
And the hand has come down too.
does it? Okay, anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the application? Jen Holmgren, bring her in, please.
I have to make her a panelist because she has an older version of Zoom.
Okay. Need to unmute.
Hi, yes, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I would like to quickly speak in favor of this applicant. It is not often that we see a young family willing and able to resettle after such a tragic fire. It seems as though they've done quite a bit of work to get this far, and
Can you hear us?
yes,
Okay. I need your
I'm
name-
sorry.
I need your name and address for the record, please.
Apologies. Jennifer Holmgren, 385 Magnolia Ave.
Right.
Okay. Would you like me to start again?
Good.
Sure.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. I just would like to say it's not often that a family from Gloucester is able to rebuild and settle back down after a tragic fire. They have worked very hard, it seems, to conform as best they can within the neighborhood, and I do hope that they're able to connect with the Gelatis, but I am fully in support of this application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak in favor of the application? Please raise your hand. I see none. Anyone that wishes to speak in opposition to the application, please raise your hand. Okay, first up is Peter. We bring Peter in so we can hear him. Peter,
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
we can now, yes. Name and address, please, for the record.
Yes, sir. My name's Peter Ross. I'm a lawyer from Ipswich. My address is 20 Market Street in Ipswich. And I represent 4 people who are with me now. Jonathan and Tuesday Keskin, who are from 494 Washington Street, and Carl DiFiore and Teresa Petronzio from 492 Washington Street. And I mean, everybody is sympathetic with the landowner here who lost the house to the fire, but we are, for the moment, entering an objection to this particular project because it is so much larger than what burned down. Specifically, the Keskins are concerned that the garage, the living space over the garage and the roof deck are going to be located within 4 feet of their property line, and it's going to be 28 feet tall. And they're concerned that it's so close and perhaps there's a different way of doing what they want without putting it right on the lot line. And if you look in your materials on the elevations, the applicant did not put in the site view from the left side, which would be from the Keskin and Petronzio di Fiore side. It's not included in the application, so we, don't have an idea what it looks like. Going on, I think there's 2 zoning ordinance provisions that apply to this, and they are 2.4.8. That one saying that if you're going to build a burned out house that's in substantially, you can do it in substantially the same form, provided there's no increase in floor area. The floor area in this project has increased tremendously. It's not quite clear from the materials, but it looks like it went from 1603 square feet to 2820 square feet. More than doubled, not quite tripled. Additionally, there's a 4-car garage with a second floor, which didn't exist before. And there's a roof deck. Secondly, the provision 2.4.5, when it talks about rebuilding a demolished non-conforming structure on a non-conforming lot. It's okay if you don't extend out of the footprint, but in this case, that's exactly what they're doing. And the extension out of the footprint infringes the side lot lines. I think they need that variance too, which has not been applied for. Basically, my 4 clients, I think, would very much like this family to rebuild their house, which they can do. There is no hardship here because the house can be rebuilt exactly where it was. So there's no zoning hardship. So with that in mind, I don't think this variance is appropriate. However, I mean, I understand Attorney Faza wants to get together and talk about things, and that may be a good idea. And with that, I guess if anybody has any questions.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah, Ms. Claire.
We'll move on to next person in line, James Gelati. James, can you unmute yourself?
Are you on mute? No?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
James? James, are you there? You unmute? He's gone. Okay, we'll try the next person. He can raise his hand again. Berbosha.
Unmuted now. Let's see if he can.
Berbosha. If you're speaking, we cannot hear you. I see you're unmuted, but yeah, don't know. Okay, let's move on. We have a hand up on a phone. Not sure.
Did I disable their speaking?
Yep.
I keep muting it, but it keeps coming back.
I know.
All right, let's,
Hello. How are you? I am under the water. Please help me. Here too much raining.
how do we get this? Can you boot him out of the meeting?
Hello. How are you? I am under the water.
Okay, we're gonna move on
I
to,
removed them.
okay, thank you. We're gonna move on to the next person up is a telephone 978-804-5098. We can bring that in. What would David Gardner be saying right now?
He'd be saying, I'm glad I'm retired.
Okay, if whoever's in on the phone, you can unmute and begin to speak. Okay, they raised their hand again, the same number, but you're here. You should be able to talk to us. We have you in the meeting. You have to unmute your phone. Let's see. *6 will let you unmute your phone. Press *6. There you go.
Sorry, this is James Gelati, speaking on behalf of Ed and Mary Ellen Gelati from 496 Washington Street.
Okay.
Okay, James.
A couple of small issues that they've raised is the proposed new height of the building with that FEMA addition, as well as the proposed garage being 2 stories. I'm sure if you guys did a site visit, you saw that it's a 1-story carport existing and a small shed. We fully understand Joel's argument on the storage. It's just the 2 stories and then including a roof deck kind of has us a little concerned of the overall height of the structure and the aesthetic fitting in with the neighborhood. So with that, I'll send it back.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Next up, Roger Lippman. Mr. Lippman?
Hello,
There you go.
members of the board, Roger Lippman. I live at 507 Washington Street in Gloucester.
Thank you.
I'd like to speak about my concern over the attached garage structure. I understand the desire to build back a nice place to live, but I don't quite see the hardship of having not being able to attach indoor parking for 4 cars. When you look at the site plan, that I think will present itself as a wall over 100 feet long. And when the applicant spoke very correctly about the nice arrangement of houses in the neighborhood here, that there's sort of a checkerboard pattern and you get these great glimpses out to the water diagonally between the houses. This 100-foot wall will just obliterate that for a lot of people. For light and views, I know it's not a right, but it's a little less than ideal for a new design. And I'm concerned that the board not be granting variances to 5-bathroom mansions as a hardship, because I think you can do a very sensitive design here and largely comply with your outbuildings for parking and storage, and then be granted and rightly so granted a variance for the footprint of the dwelling itself. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have James Park. James? All right, take them out. Okay, anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
I don't want to speak in opposition, but when they call whatever his name is there a number that we can actually keep and then see what happens, send it to the police department for harassment?
It's only showing as a name from what I
Yeah.
can see.
Oh, wow.
It's shown up as 2 different names so far.
Can I scream back at him? Because that's kind of therapy for me.
No.
Have a good night, everyone.
All righty, anyone else wishing to speak in opposition, please raise your hand. We will have more opportunity. So seeing none, refer back to Attorney Favazza, who is, I believe, going to request a continuance.
Yes, that's right. I've heard the concerns voiced tonight. Obviously, it would be nice to hear these beforehand, but better late than ever. So I would like to continue this meeting, this hearing to your next meeting. That'll give us time to reach out to Mr. Lippman, to Attorney Ross, to Gelati's, and see what we can do. Hopefully come back with a few more people in our camp without losing people that are currently in the camp in our favor. So I requested.
So February 11th, okay? Quick enough?
Okay for me.
Catherine?
I would, thank you. I'm like still shocked from that meeting. I move continuing 498 Washington Street to our July, what's the date?
February.
February 11th.
February, sorry, Joel.
Not July.
We can summer already. February 11th, 2020 meeting.
2021.
Second that.
20
Second that. When
Motion
she
made
gets
and
it right,
seconded
I'll
to
second it, Joe.
continue The hearing of Amanda Marino to February 11th, 2021. Roll call vote.
Ms. Pratt,
Yes.
Mr. Nyman,
Yes.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes.
Ms. Slickty,
Yes.
and Mr. Parisi.
Yes. Okay, so that's continued.
Thank you.
Move on to our next hearing is the petition of Ted and Christine Testaverde seeking a special permit under 5.24 accessory in-law, a variance for front yard and side yard to allow construction of an attached addition to be used as accessory in-law apartment at 1 Crestview Terrace. And representing themselves.
I'm afraid to press on anybody. So Chris Testaverde, I'm going to
Bring them in.
allow to speak.
Testaverde?
Good
Yeah.
evening. I'm Chris Testaverde. This is Ted Testaverde. We live at 1 Crestview Terrace in Gloucester, and we are requesting the board grant us a special permit for an accessory in-law as well as a variance for the front and side yard so that we can build an in-law addition for my 84-year-old mother who's hearing impaired. And as you can see in the packet, it would be an attached structure, 24 by 27. It'll be a single story, and it will have the accessory in-law in there. We're requesting a 6-foot relief on the front yard and a 6-foot relief on the left side yard, as well as the special permit for the addition. I'm not sure, I don't have a presentation, but I'm not sure if there's anything else that you need.
I would, so reviewing the information, I guess I have a couple of questions to clarify some stuff. So you were originally granted a variance to build a garage?
Yes, in 2011, we applied for a variance for a garage and it had the same footprint. It was the same size as we're requesting now. We just had Joe Terramina change the plans, reduce it from a 1.5-story garage to a 1-story accessory in-law. But
Okay, so you didn't build the garage.
we didn't build the garage, no. So
Okay, I
we're
was
back.
thinking it was the other end. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm with you.
thank you. That's what my confusion.
That clears that up a little.
Yeah.
Any questions of the board at this time?
No, I just knew I'd been there before. I was involved in the first decision.
So what so under this accessory in-law special permit, how big is the living space going to be?
It's about 680 feet, 600 feet.
All right, so it comes within it's no more than 35% of your gross living area?
No.
Okay. What's the other thing? I think that was my only question. Okay. Other than the one Joe asked. All right.
Are you gonna have enough parking?
Yes, we have about 30 feet from when this new addition is built, 30 feet from that structure to the end of the driveway. So we'll have 2 plus possibly 3 spaces. They won't be front to back, they'll be side to side.
Okay,
And we only have 2 cars, so I don't think we're gonna have to.
all righty. Well, There's no other questions by the board at this time. We'll move to public testimony. I have open public hearing, and anyone in the audience that wishes to speak in favor of the application, you'd raise your hand to be recognized. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? See none. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please raise your hand. Anyone in opposition? See no raising the hand, so we'll close the public hearing. There'll be no rebuttal. Discussion by the board?
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So it's following up on Catherine's question about the living area. I don't see square footage on the plans that I have, unless I'm missing it. Where does it show what the square footage is for the existing house to make sure that it's within the
Well, I'm looking at-
requirements of the in-law?
I'm online on the assessors right now, and the first floor is 1250, upper floor is 840, so that's 2,090. Let's say 2,100 square. Yeah, 2,093, 2,100 square feet.
Okay.
And there's a finished. It says there's at least online. It says there's 617 square feet of finished basement. I don't know if that's counted or not, Bill.
But it's still under the 735, which is 35%.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're
Just
good
checking.
on-
I didn't see it. Thank you.
Yeah, as soon as I saw that, I went online, was looking at it. Yeah.
Thank you, Michael.
Any other questions, discussion by the board?
So
Go ahead, Kevin.
the standard for granting an accessory dwelling special permit is just that it complies with all these square footage requirements and it's not a detriment to the neighborhood?
Right. Yeah, it's a regular special permit standard.
Okay. No, I mean, I think we need more, more units, accessory dwelling units. I understand the need to put an elder close by to take care of them.
It is a, I'm sorry.
No, so. And this board saw fit to grant these variances previously. I went and looked at it. It seemed like it wouldn't really have an adverse impact on any other neighbors. I think the
One
last,
story. It's pretty tasteful. I didn't feel like it was aggressive.
Yeah, it's an
Yeah.
odd shaped lot, there's really nowhere to place it because it is a rounded corner lot. It's close on one side, but when I went out, the other house has significant amount of land before you get to the other house, and that one's way back. So I
yeah,
think it works out. There's a lot of good reasons to give it.
yeah, it didn't really seem to tension anybody or,
Mr. Chairman, I got a question for Bill Sanborn. I'm just remembering we had a petitioner like this earlier last year. Do they have to check in with the city and register for an accessory
Yes,
dwelling like that?
there is a requirement. I'm sorry, Peter. Yes, they do need to file with the building inspector every year to verify. It's also specific to the people who are living there. So they do have to say who is going to be living there, and they have to verify that every year. Also, I wanted to note on this, I believe I have this right, Greg. I believe this property has covenants on it that restricts it to single family. That's why they're looking for the in-law use on this, because they can't turn it to a two-family by the covenants, not a city requirement, but a covenants. And this will comply with their covenants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
so, when I read it, it says, if they sell the house, the accessory dwelling unit special permit goes away. So I guess at that point, you have to use it as a single family dwelling. I mean, no one's going to expect them to take down the structure. So then they just have to take it over as a single family. Is that what happens?
Yes, that's correct. It's still legal use is a single family, so it's an accessory use that does have to go away if they don't meet the conditions. It's very restrictive to the conditions that are on this.
Okay,
Um,
there's no other questions. We'll entertain a motion.
on the petition of Ted and Christine Testaverde seeking a special permit under 5.24 accessory in-law and variances for front and side yard setbacks to allow for construction of an attached addition to be used as an accessory in-law apartment at 1 Crestview Terrace. I think they've met the requirements for a special permit. The square footage does not exceed 35% of their gross living area. It's going to be used for a family member. You know, I think it's tastefully, they do talk about the facade. I do think it ties in nicely with the house. I think it's a nice design. So I would move approval of the special permit. I would also move approval of the variances. They have an odd shaped lot there. There's not really much else that they could do in order to fit that addition on the lot. I think even though it is only 6 feet from their side yard setback, I don't think it derogates from the intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance because there's still plenty of room around the structures for, fire control and light and air and all that stuff. So I think that they met the burden for a variance. So I would move approval of the variance as requested also.
I would second the special permit and variances.
Motion's made and seconded for the special permit and variances for Ted and Christine Testaverde. Roll call vote.
Mr. Nyman,
Yes on the special permit and yes on both variances.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes.
Ms. Slickby,
Yes on the special permit, yes on the variances.
Ms. Pratt,
Yes, on all the relief requested. I think it's a good project.
Mr. Parisi.
I vote yes on both. Ms. Testaverde, you've heard our decision, favorable. The decision will be drafted and you'll be notified of that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ask Mr. Sanborn if he would stamp and sign those drawings on my behalf.
I will, Mr. Chairman, and we need a member to write this one, please.
Oh, I got 3 on my desk.
Mr. Chairman, I can do it.
Thank you, Adrian.
Yep,
Thank you.
of course.
Okay, moving on to our third hearing is the petition of Cape Ann Investment Group LLC seeking a special permit under 2.4.3B to alter and expand a non-conforming structure. A special permit under 2.3.1 number 3 conversion to 2-family. Does that? I thought this was a 3.
Keep reading.
Variance front yard, left side yard, house, variance left side for the shed to allow single-story addition with stairs at rear of home. 2 new dormers on front and back of house for the purpose of converting from 2-family to 3-family at 18 Spring Street. I believe it's Attorney Frontiero.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, but we can't see you.
Oh, sorry, you can't see me. I'm hooked up. Let me just try something real quick. Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening. It's the first time this has happened to me, so let me see here. Okay, there it is. Got it. Head hit start video. All right, for the record, Sal Frontiero, 46 Middle Street, Gloucester, for the petitioners. The petitioners are a family-owned LLC. They recently purchased 18 Spring Street with an eye towards improving it. This board may recall that I think it was earlier, last year, perhaps early last year, they originally petitioned to do a 6-family there, but we ended up withdrawing that. There was a lot of neighborhood opposition. So we're coming back now with a proposal to convert from a 2 to a 3. The site is located in the downtown area between Prospect Street and East Main Street. It currently contains a 2,056 square foot, 2.5-story, two-family dwelling consisting of two-bedroom units, and it's in the R5 zoning district. The site itself is 5,519 square feet, and right now it provides 1 or 2 parking spaces, tandem if there are 2, and it require backing out onto Spring Street in order to exit the property. The site itself complies with all of the rezoning requirements of the R5 zoning district where it's located. The primary structure is non-conforming as to left side yard setback and front yard setback. And there's a shed to the rear that is non-conforming as to left side yard setback. I think I might accidentally said there were 2 sheds in the application. There's only 1 shed and it is staying. With the proposed work, the petitioner proposes to add an approximately 10 by 13 3/4 single-story addition with stairs to the rear of the building, shed dormers on each side of the front and the back, and 3 parking spaces to the rear. And the result of all this would be a proposal for a studio apartment in the bump out in the back with the addition, a single-story studio apartment. And then the upper 3 floors would be 2 4-bedroom units. So we have 3 full stories now if this is approved, because the shed dormers allow obviously the attic to be used with sufficient headspace now. The proposed work would not result in any additional nonconformities. Again, the structure on site is presently nonconforming as to left side yard setback and front yard setback. So we're requesting variances because of the technicality that we're going from a 2 to a 3, and all of the pre-existing nonconforming protections afforded under Chapter 40A, Section 6 do not apply to anything more than a 2-family. So we're not creating any new nonconformities dimensionally. We're not magnifying or extending any existing ones. We need the following relief: a special permit to alter and expand a nonconforming structure, variance for front and left side yard setback, and a special permit to convert from a 2 to a 3-family. And I should mention too, I'm not sure whether we need a special a variance for the shed for left side yard setback. I put it in there because the city, whether or not you give sheds protection under the single and 2-family exception depends on the city. Gloucester does specifically say that sheds are also afforded that protection. So I'm not sure whether when we convert to a 3-family, the shed also loses its protection. The shed is completely unaffected by this. We're not touching it, but just as an abundance of caution, I did request that variance as well. As far as the special permit to alter and expand, Section 2.4.3 of the zoning ordinance, alterations and additions are allowed in a special permit issues if the board finds that such additions and alterations are not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood in the existing situation. And here I submit that the special permit should issue. First of all, the addition will not create any new nonconformities or magnify any, so we're not creating any new zoning violations. The shed dormers will not result in overcrowding or blocking of views, or won't inhibit light and air for neighbors. And the building will be the shed dormers will be no wider than the existing roof, nor will they make the roof taller. And I think also the size of the resulting structures in keeping with the neighborhood and in keeping with the neighboring houses. So for those reasons, I don't think that this construction, as far as the structure goes, can be deemed to be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. As to the variance requests, as you know, under Section 1.7, this board must find that that enforcement of the literal provisions of the zoning ordinance would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise. And 2 additional findings. The first is that the hardship is owing to or arises from circumstances related to the soil, shape, topography of the land or structures in question, which particularly affect the land. And also that the relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good or without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent of the zoning ordinance. So applying that standard, if you look at the shape of this lot, it's rather narrow. It's wider in the front, narrows quite a bit towards the back. And obviously we need to provide off-street parking. So if you take into account the juxtaposition of the structure on the lot, that does create a hardship, because really there's no other spot on the lot to put a structure of any substantial size without, and also provide parking. And the site's widest at the front. So to require compliance with the setbacks would require either a complete tear down or rebuild of the structure, or to make the structure significantly smaller. So for those reasons, I believe a hardship does exist. However, the relief can be granted without derogating from the intent of the zoning ordinance and without harm to the public good. Again, the intent of the zoning ordinance is complied with here. We're not creating any new nonconformities, and the actual areas in question will remain unchanged. Again, it's more of a technical variances we're asking for due to the change in category from anything from single 2 to a 3-family or more. And so I think for those reasons, the variance should issue. And as far as variance is requesting a 15-foot front yard variance from, so to go from 15 to 0 feet. The front porch comes right up to the lot line. And as far as the left side yard setback, requesting a variance of 5.5 feet, which will allow the current structure to sit 2 feet from the left side yard line as it does now. And again, if the board does think we require a variance for the shed, we're asking for a variance of 1.5 feet to allow the shed to sit 3.5 feet from the lot line. Again, we're not touching the shed at all, but this board could find that the fact that we're going from a 2 to a 3 also negates the legal non-conforming status of the shed. And that hardship for the shed, if you look at the parking setup and you look where the structure is located, there's really no place to put that shed aside from encroaching into the setback. It's narrow back there. That's the only spot to put it. So that's the hardship there. There would really be no other location if we comply with the parking and leave the current structure as is with the small addition to it. Lastly, when your special permit to convert from a 2 to a 3 family, under section 2.3.1, use number 3, section 1.8.3, which governs use special permits, states that they may be granted by this board upon a written determination that the proposed use will be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. It will not adversely affect the neighborhood, the zoning district, or the city to such a degree as to outweigh the beneficial effects of such proposed use. And as this board knows, there's 6 special permit factors that we look at in determining that, and I will address those separately. As to the social, economic, and community needs, again, I've said this many times before, the city does need more rental housing. The housing production plan of 2017 said that we would need 434 units in the foreseeable future. I checked out the Halyard, I think it's Halyard, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, the Halyard Apartments at Gloucester Crossing, that is adding 200 units. However, all of the units are, from what I could see, either studios, 1 bedroom or 2 bedrooms. I didn't see any 3 bedrooms or more advertised there. So even though it's adding units, it's not necessarily adding units that may cater to families that need housing, that can't afford to buy a house. And that's becoming a huge problem in Gloucester, as you all know. So these 2 4-bedroom units are very, very valuable in that regard. It's extremely hard to find 4-bedroom units in Gloucester. So if you have a family with 3 kids and you don't own a home, you're definitely going to have kids sharing a bedroom. If you have 4 kids, you're going to have 2 kids sharing bedrooms, all the kids sharing bedrooms. So this gives a little bit more independence and you know, for a family of 3 or 4 kids. And again, you won't see many 4-bedroom apartments around. This adds 2 of those units to the housing stock. So I think that's an important community need that is met by this proposal. And also the studio apartment is rather small, and it will be, I'm sure it'll be modestly priced. It's downtown. It's near the train station. It's near all the amenities. As far as traffic flow and safety, again, the site presently has 1 parking space or 2 tandem spaces, depending how you look at it. And that would be eliminated with the three spaces in the rear. The same driveway will be used, but they'll no longer be required to back out onto Spring Street to exit the property. Parking is at a premium in that area, and because the same driveway will be used, we will not be sacrificing any on-street parking to put this driveway in. So we'll be adding at least 2 spaces without the need to having to walk back onto Spring Street. And being that it's downtown, it's in a fairly crowded area, I don't think you'll see any appreciable difference in traffic in the neighborhood as a result of 2 units. As far as the adequacy of public services, the site is presently connected to municipal water and sewer, and there'll be no adverse stress added to that with the result of 2 more units. So I don't see any adverse effect on utilities or public services. As far as neighborhood character and social structure, the neighborhood is largely residential in nature with some commercial uses on the outskirts. The area in question consists of single-family homes, 2-family homes, multifamily homes, and they range in the area from 1 unit to 8 units. And most of the properties in the area are between 1 and 3 from my analysis. Now, if you don't count the site, if you look at the abutters list, I looked at those properties. 7 of them are single-family homes, 4 are 2-family homes, 2 are 3-family homes, and 2 are 4-family homes, and 2 are commercial. So you can see there's quite a mix just on the abutters list itself. And the properties to the immediate east and west of this property are both 4-family homes. So you'll have a 3-family sandwich between 2 4-families. So I do think it fits into the character of the neighborhood in that regard. And it also seems to be a mix of owner-occupied and rentals based on you look at the assessors, the abutters list based on the addresses of the owners. So it's a fairly interesting mix of different residential uses and numbers of units and also some commercial uses. As far as the qualities of the natural environment, again, this is downtown. There's not a lot of green space to be had there. There are no sensitive resource areas nearby, and the property is already connected to city water and sewer. So the petitioner is unaware of any detrimental effect to the natural environment. And lastly, as to potential fiscal impact, the city's housing stock and the total rental units, again, adding to the stock will contribute to the supply, and thereby, basic on supply and demand. The more apartment units you have, the more reasonable the rents are going to be. That's just simple economics there. And obviously, the taxable value of the property will increase. They're going to do substantial renovation. You may have noticed that they did start doing some work in there. Whenever one of my clients wants to do that, I tell them, make sure if you get a building permit to do work in there or anything like that, you were doing work that you would do that you would need to do regardless of whether you got the zoning relief. So nothing that they're doing in there is presumptive. Also, there'll be short-term benefits in terms of construction work for local contractors. And again, I think it'll really help people with middle-class incomes. A lot of the projects in Gloucester seem to be high-end, and a lot of our people who grew up here are pretty much been priced out. So I think projects like this help that tremendously, especially for families. So I submit for those reasons that the granting of the special permit will not adversely affect the neighborhood, the zoning district of the city to such an extent as to outweigh the beneficial effects of the use based on those 6 factors. As such, I believe that the special permit to convert from a 2 to 3 family should issue. And I should mention too that I had my client send a letter to all the neighbors. I usually draft it so it's factually accurate and give it to the client to, send and personalize and invite people to call me if they want to see the plans. One person did contact me. She was in favor of the project. The only thing she requested was a fence along, like a stockade type fence along the right side yard line. And my clients have no issue whatsoever with making that a condition to the relief. So we're perfectly willing to do that. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Sal, what was the condition?
They asked for a fence along the east right side yard line.
Okay.
Isn't it on the left side?
Is it left? I think it was
Indicated as a fence, sticks with stockade fence on the left side.
Oh, I thought it was right. She said she was on Prospect Street. So I presume she wanted right.
Well, the one that's drawn in on the drawing is on the left side.
Oh yeah, I know this fence was not drawn in there because this was brought up after the plans were done.
So it'd be a second fence. Okay.
Yeah, it'll be another fence.
Yeah, because you definitely would want a fence where they're going to park. Otherwise, the lights are going to be shining right in the windows of the house where they're coming in to park.
Yeah, we have no problem with the fence there. It's already there and maintain that as a condition as well.
Okay, thank you. Any questions by the board at this time?
No.
Okay, we'll take public testimony. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the project, please raise your hand to be recognized. We have a panelist raising his hand. Yep, Joel.
Thank you. Once again, my name is Joel Favaza. I am an attorney at Seaside Legal Solutions, 123 Main Street. I'm here on behalf of Red Blazer Rentals, LLC. They own 145 Prospect Street, which is you're facing the subject property is the yellow house to the right. We are in full support of the application. We hope that the relief is granted. We agree with what Attorney Frontero said regarding the need for additional little a affordable housing here in Gloucester. I just point out that the applicant's property is actually sandwiched between my client's property and 16 Spring Street, both of which are 4 families, and neither of which had on-site parking. My client's property actually just got its first parking spot thanks to Sal's client, who, while they were doing site work, offered to take down a wall of ours and dig us out a small driveway. So I think by far, we've looked at the neighborhood. It's an R5 neighborhood. The neighbors are all certainly making maximum use of the R5 designation. I see no reason why we shouldn't, allow this lot that's bigger than most and has more parking than most to do so also. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, speaking in favor, Laura. You bring Laura in?
Hello. Yeah, I actually live across the street and parking here is already a problem.
Name and address, please, for the record.
Laura Collette, and I live at 147 Prospect Street.
Yep.
And parking here is already a problem. During the winter, it's a problem because nobody shovels. And during the summer, it's a problem because all the tourists take up the parking spots. So 3 spots, but you've got to figure most houses have 2 cars now. So I don't know how 3 spots fixes 6
Are you
cars.
speaking in opposition or in favor? We're in favor right
In opposition. Sorry.
now. Okay, hang on then. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the project? Please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, we'll ask for people in opposition and we'll go back to Laura.
As I was saying, parking is already a problem. I can't park beside the place that I dwell in most of the, half the time. And, in the winter, it's a problem because nobody shovels. And in the summer, it's a problem because we've got the tourists taking up the few street parking places that we have. A lot of families these days have 2 cars, and you're talking 3 parking spaces for, okay, let's say one family has 2 cars. That's 4 cars. 2 families have 2 cars. That's, there's already a parking problem, and I don't see adding extra congestion to it.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Brian Kane.
Yes, hello. Thank you for your time. This is Brian Kane. I'm at 16R Spring Street. I share perhaps the longest property line with the applicant. I am actually just not abutting the actual structure right now. I actually abut the part of the property that would be the new parking lot, along with the shed that had been mentioned. My problem is that, and why I'm in opposition of this, I'm sorry, I have a dog barking right now. I'm in opposition to this. It's my main kitchen window that would have the cars that are parking, the 3-car parking lot that is here, that would have the vehicle headlights pointing into it. I know that Mr. Frontero and I have discussed the option of a shade or a fence that was going to go up to protect the window from those headlights. The problem is that my property line is 24 inches away from where that fence would go up. So I would have a 24-inch, I would have a fence 24 inches above or away from the main window on the first floor of my home. So I do have a problem with the parking lot in the back of that house. I would echo what Laura had just noted, the fact that especially if we're talking about 2 units that are going to have 4 bedrooms, likelihood of those two of those units having 2 cars in their home. So there is no on-street parking left available on Spring Street. So you're going to cause further congestion there. I also have an issue with the dormers that are going in. During the spring, summer, and fall months, my family and I use our outdoor patio and deck space significantly. The addition of those 2 dormers on the back of the existing structure will put windows directly overlooking my semi-private space in my property, which will potentially affect my property values negatively, along with that parking lot that I would start to abut rather than just a normal rear yard. My third issue, and you've heard the dogs barking in the background, my household has 2 dogs. Increasing the backyard activity here of this by making this a third 3-family home by 33% is going to agitate the dogs and interrupt an otherwise peaceful neighborhood. And keeping the shed is already, the shed is a derelict structure in my opinion right now. Again, something right outside of my kitchen window that we've been looking at for well over a year at this point. I don't think that it is necessary to keep that shed in the first place. And then finally, this has nothing to do with the permit itself, but the owners of the property, through their actions over the past year, have demonstrated to me, at least, that they are going to operate this structure as frankly slumlords. Since the beginning of the construction in early 2020, there's been no attempt to clean up the construction site. They've had a full dumpster outside of my backyard for well over almost a year at this point. It wasn't until I contacted their attorney that they mowed the backyard one time during this entire construction piece, which has actually increased the amount of rats that have been coming out of that yard and that home. My dogs killed one recently, so it was a great find on my deck at that point, a halved rat. So, and that's where they're coming from. As I move my garbage cans on Monday afternoons, that's where I'm seeing them at this point. So I respectfully request that the Zoning Board of Appeals deny that special permit and keep this a 2-family dwelling rather than a 3-family. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard Connolly?
Hello, good evening. Richard Connolly here, 14 Rear Spring Street, Unit 1.
Yep.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, I would like to, I was listening to Attorney Frontiero's argument. That's a compelling argument about the 4-bedroom apartments. It's Gloucester does need that type of lodging for people. But I think that I'd just like to reiterate Brian's argument. It's just basically, I'm not going to repeat what he said. It's pretty much the same thing. And but yeah, so I was wondering, can we just go back to just a 2-family unit, the 2-family house? You condo it up and do whatever you do, or just do it as an apartment building and just ditch the 3rd car, at least. And I noticed there's some like paint on the street in front of 18 Spring Street. I think that was done by the demo of the building. It looks like a dazzle camouflage on a warship. I mean, can that be addressed as well? I mean, it's like an eyesore. It's kind of like a blight on the neighborhood. And that's pretty much what I have to say. I'd propose that we go back to like the 2-family house. That's it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Sean Doherty, 12 Spring Street.
Hi, my name's Sean Doherty, 12 Spring Street. I'm not going to rehash much because Brian put it very eloquently. In addition, I'd like to say that I've been here 7 years now, and I've never seen a rat until this building was started to do whatever they were doing over there. And we were already here last year, and this seems just like a renegotiation of the 6-unit. It's going from 2 2-bedrooms now to 2 4-bedrooms, and now there's another apartment being added. So it just seems like a rehashing of what we were here for last year. In addition to that, their argument that this is going to somehow benefit local contractors. Well, I'll tell you, for right now, all I've seen is Maine license plates and New Hampshire license plates, and they did a terrible job. They finally got a dumpster. The first couple of demos they did.
Okay, sir, that's not relevant to the zoning issue.
Okay. But it's not very encouraging for this family-owned business, the way they've practiced with this property so far. All right.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, we'll close the public testimony. And, well, I'll leave that open in case we have any changes, but we'll go to rebuttal.
Thank you. As to Ms. Colette's complaints, I certainly completely understand that parking is tough downtown. That argument can be made in every street downtown. These houses were all built on small lots. These houses were almost all built before we had cars. That's a sort of trade-off of living downtown. Parking is difficult. Bottom line is we are complying with the minimum number of parking spaces required, and we're adding 2 spaces. So again, that type of argument I think is just more of an argument about downtown living in general. as to, and I'd like to also express my disappointment. I mean, I have my clients send letters out, and it's just very disheartening for people not to contact me at all. And the only one person contacted me in this petition. It would have been a lot nicer to hear about this ahead of time. So I think that should be taken into consideration. As far as Mr. Kane, he lives on a very small lot, a 2,000 square foot lot. And his house is 2 feet away from the lot line. Those are results of nonconformities on his lot. Those are nonconformities on his lot that causes him to be very close to the lot line. I'm not unsympathetic. We are willing to put a fence up. But the fact that his main window is that close has to do with a nonconformity on his structure, on his lot, which is much, much smaller than this lot. And as far as the slumlord allegation, I mean, it's a construction site. It's not going to be pretty. The house was run down and dilapidated before they bought it. It's going to be a huge improvement to the neighborhood when it's done. So I'd ask that people just reserve judgment until the house is completed. And also, I believe that he lives in there's a 3-family there as well. So, all we're asking for is what other people in the neighborhood have. And as far as the blight, that's going to be gone. And last time, people talked about the type of person that would be attracted to this property. I take offense to that. The property is good. It is who it is. I mean, they're going to be citizens like everybody else who are entitled to apartments. So I don't think it's going to change the character of the neighborhood at all. And I'd ask that the board grant the relief. Thank you.
Okay, any questions by the board at this point?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'm a little confused with the shed. I see that cell, I believe the shed we're talking about is shed 1 to the rear of the property. You're asking for a side yard, which I agree you do need to permit the shed because we're changing the use. However, you're not asking for a rear. Why are you not asking for a rear yard?
Good question. I'm unfamiliar at the top of my head what the rear is up without looking it up on that for the accessory.
It's laid out on the plan. I believe the rear is 20 feet and the shed's 5'6" off the rear property line.
So, well, if I believe they want to keep that, so I would request that as well. I don't, I think that the public's sufficiently notified about that. They want to keep the shed, so.
I'll leave that up to the chair, but it was not listed in the application nor in the ad for the rear yard. Thank you.
If I may speak to that, I've had this issue before, and the standard is whether what you're doing is notifying people that the relief you're asking for, whether it may be injurious to them. So I believe the notice was sufficient in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, personally, Mr. Chair, I would say I kind of agree with that. It would seem, I mean, the purpose of the notice is to give people notice of what's going on. It's pretty clear from the notice, the intent is to keep the shed. It's to go from 2 to 3. It would seem to me kind of hard to make them re-advertise for a rear yard setback when it was clear what, the project is, that people knew enough about it to talk about the shed. So that's just my 2 cents.
I agree with Catherine and the applicant.
I also agree.
Okay.
And the rear yard should be 7.5 feet, right? We're R5, multifamily, accessory. So we look at accessory. Oh, I'm looking at accessory, right? Wait a minute.
It's not multi though. It's single to 3. That chart, that table.
Oh, right. I keep
It'd be
thinking
14.6 would be what you'd be looking for, right?
right. I keep thinking of 3 is multi. Accessory. R5, minimum side, rear. For an accessory structure, 5 feet. And it says we have 5.6, right?
Oh.
Am I reading my chart wrong? Single and 2. I might have an old zoning ordinance because mine just
Catherine, if yours says 5 feet, then it's gonna be 5 feet. I don't have the assessor in front of me. I was assuming it was 20 feet. And that might explain why Attorney Frontero did not ask for the variance. Thank you.
Yes, it is 5 feet. Sorry, I shouldn't doubt myself like that. I'm looking at it. It is 5 feet for accessory.
And I apologize for bringing that subject up. Thank you.
All right, no harm to put us to a test, Bill.
Hey, at least we know when something's not advertised next time, how to handle it.
Shed's been there a long time.
What's
Okay,
this?
any other questions by the board?
All right.
And now,
I mean, it's a big improvement.
entertain a
Yeah,
motion.
I think it's obviously clear, like the 6 was too much. I mean, it was a big improvement from what it was. And, you know, I understand the problem about the parking. It is tight down. Even just going there to look at the property, you couldn't find a parking spot, you know, and it's kind of a pass-through street where people are cutting through from Prospect Street down to Main Street, and, you know, I get traffic, but if you can't blame all the parking on one structure, and if they have the required number of parking spaces, it's kind of hard to hold it against them on the issue of parking, right? Today. So.
I mean, they widened that driveway. I remember the first time going down there, I had to do like a 3-point turn to get in there. Now that they demoed that wall and whatever the neighbor and the petitioner had agreement with, I think improved the access to the backyard for parking. And that was my biggest concern, how are people pulling in and pulling out? And I mean, I think that was a big jailbreaker right there.
Yeah.
I would say, I mean, this is was an existing 2-family. It's the exact same building where they're adding on in the back, which is not in the setbacks. That actually used to be a patio with a roof over the whole thing and a carport with a roof over it that
Right.
extended down into the driveway. So I think they're actually opening up more green space than there ever was there in years past, being familiar with the house. And they're not doing anything closer on the left side. They're willing to put the stockade fence on both sides. I don't know how, I'm looking at these drawings, and I do not see a home 2 feet from the boundary, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, it is on the sort of, you see that bump out on the left, you'll see it says 2 feet.
Oh, but no, I'm talking about the fence being to the.
Oh, my apologies. Yeah, my
from the
apologies.
parking spaces, but the fence is as a right. So it's not like you can say, don't put the fence. We want the fence, and we want the fence on both. So I think it's a much improvement. The original was obviously not right for there, but if a 3-family doesn't fit in the R5 on Spring Street, it doesn't belong anywhere in the world. So I would be in support of the application.
Yeah, and I think all the variances, as the attorney said, arise from a building that's not moving, but that's being converted to a 2 to 3. And it's pretty typical in that area when you convert from a 2 to a 3, which is what the city's interested in doing, that these variances come up. It's not like you're moving the house any closer to the front, which is right on the front boundary, or to the left, which is 2 feet from the left boundary. So I think there's clearly a hardship.
Yeah, I don't have necessarily much to add, but I will reiterate a couple things the board members have already said in support. I think this is a vast improvement from what came before us earlier this year, or whenever last year maybe. I think a 3-family, I think Joe's right. If a 3-family doesn't go on Spring Street, it doesn't go anywhere in Gloucester. That is like R5 to the max. I understand the problems with parking. I understand the neighbors' issues, but it's a tight neighborhood. That it's been a tight neighborhood. So I don't think it's fair to blame all of the neighborhood issues on this one dwelling. And I think it's a good project. I think it'll be a vast improvement from what's there now. So I'm in support.
Thank you, Adrian. Are we ready for a motion?
All right, on the petition to Cape Ann Investment Group LLC, seeking the special permit under 2.4.3 to alter, expand a non-conforming structure, and the special permit under 2.3.1 to convert from a two to a family. You know, I think the non-conformities is, you know, by adding these dormers in terms of the one to alter, conform, alter, expand, you're adding these dormers, but it's not really intensifying the non-conforming nature. I mean, the non-conformities are really your side yard setback and your front yard setback. I mean, you're putting a little bit more structure in it. So I don't think that is substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conformities. In terms of going from a 2 to a 3, there is a huge need for family housing in Gloucester. If you needed 3 bedrooms and you were looking for a unit, you would be hard pressed to find one at any price, never mind at something that you can afford. So I really think it, you know, top of the line hits that need. It's in keeping with the housing production plan to try to address more, you know, multifamily housing and, or young family housing. I do think the traffic is definitely, you know, an issue to consider, but this law is meeting all the parking requirements. You know, if they're going from a 2 to 3, the zoning ordinance says if you have, you know, three units, you need 1 parking space per unit, and they are providing off-street parking. So in that regards, they're not exacerbating the problem. I mean, we can theorize that there might be two cars per household, but we don't in fact know that. So you can't hold parking against them if they're meeting the requirements of the zoning ordinance. So I don't think that it's going to be drastically more detrimental than what's already existing there. They're taking a structure that's really dilapidated and putting it back into service. I think there's certainly adequate utilities. It's not going to have an adverse impact on the natural environment. It's pretty much a dense downtown neighborhood. And as Joe pointed out, there's going to be a little bit more open space. It might not be green space, but it's going to be open space in the back of that building with some of those structures removed. So I think that you have, you know, it'll have a maybe minimal financial impact in terms of real estate taxes, but I don't think it'll have an adverse financial impact. So I think you've met the requirements for a special permit to go from a 2 to a 3. And I think for the variances for the, you know, front yard, the left side yard for the house and the left side yard for the shed, these structures are already existing there. And yeah, that's what the hardship arises from, the placement of the structure on the lot. You can't really expect someone to knock down the building and move it. They're not changing the footprint at all. So I think they've met a hardship for granting the variances. I would add a condition though to the relief that there be a fence constructed on both sides of the rear where the parking is, just to protect from both neighbors from, you know, the lights from the car or whatnot. And with that condition and for those reasons, I would vote yes on the special permits and the variances.
You made a motion.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a motion, yeah.
Yeah.
Motion
Say your yes for a minute.
For 2 special permits and a series of variances for petition to Cape Ann Investment Group, roll call vote.
I need to second all those, Joe.
I thought you did, okay.
Yeah, no, I didn't, but I am. Consider it
Thank you.
done.
Made and seconded.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes, and I hope the contractors can just keep it as clean as possible in respect to the neighbors.
Ms. Slichty,
Yes, for all the relief requested.
Ms. Pratt,
Yes, for all the relief requested.
Mr. Nyman,
Yes, for all the relief requested.
Mr. Parisi.
Yes, I vote yes for the motions. You've heard our decision, Sal, it's favorable. Appreciate the draft. And I'll ask that Mr. Sanborn stamp and sign the plans on behalf of the board.
Happy to do that.
I will,
I will
sir.
speak to them about the condition of the property, making sure that they keep it clean during construction. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, moving on. Next is a petition of Dawn M. Burnham seeking a special permit under 2.3.1, number 3, to convert 1 to 2 family with exterior changes to allow construction of a 14 by 40 foot addition to allow conversion to 2-family dwelling at 6 Cabo Drive. Ms. Burnham. She's got her hand up. We got to bring her in. You could unmute yourself. There you go.
Hi, Chairman and members of the board. Dawn Burnham, live at 6 Cabo Drive in Gloucester. And I'm here I was here last year for a special permit 2.3.1, number 3 relief, and I got it for a 12 by 38 addition. And in the meantime, I wanted to see if I could get it a little bigger, had a builder look at it, said it would be doable. And I'm going for 14 by 40, coming closer to my house and not further out to the lot line.
Okay.
Oh, there I am. So it's still going to be a garage with utility room on the first floor, and then an apartment on the second floor with a deck off the back.
So the
So Joe, just a question, or maybe Bill Sanborn a question, somebody who can answer. So was the previous special permit never registered? Is that what's going on?
Actually, it was registered. I got it time stamped and then I went and registered at the Registry of Deeds on October 15th. But then I decided before I got started, because it was kind of late to start the project, and I had already had a builder looking at it, and he thinks that I should do it a little bit bigger. So, and I did need some more square footage because it was pretty teeny.
So my question, so I'm asking, this question is going to go back to Bill. So if that's all, if we granted the special permit and it's already been registered, then why are we converting from a 1 to a 2? She already has permission to do that. Isn't she asking for, an expansion of that's already been granted?
The relief has already been granted. She decided she wanted to extend the permit, enlarge what was granted. So you're looking at the enlargement to see if that's still going to be acceptable to the board to enlarge the project, where it's different than what was originally proposed to the board.
I'm just reading the language. I'm a little confused by the way that it's worded, that she's not asking to convert, that's already been granted. So again, I'm not trying to split hairs. I don't really understand why it's worded the way that it is, that's all.
It's just trying to describe the relief she already had and what's being amended. That special permit was granted is now being amended and what it involves.
Okay.
Right. We didn't want the public to get the impression that she's just doing a small little addition to something that was already done. She's changing what was originally there.
Yeah.
Are we modifying the previously granted special permit?
Yes.
Okay. Going 2 feet more in length and 2 feet more in width.
Yeah.
The width is going closer to her existing property, right? Not closer to the neighbor.
Yes.
Any, go ahead, Peter.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Any other questions, and we can take testimony. We'll open up to the public. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application? Please raise your hand. Anyone in favor? See none. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Please raise your hand in opposition. Again, I see none. We'll close testimony. Discussion by the board.
Seems like she's just basically here for the same thing, just trying to enlarge it by a couple of feet one way and a couple of feet the other way.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that nobody's out is against it. I mean, it's a tight little area.
Yeah.
Very narrow homes. But we did approve it before, and I had 2 feet closer together. I don't know, it's one structure because it's connected, so. No, I don't have any, seem to have any different thoughts. Michael?
No, I mean, I would be just looking for if neighbors have any concerns or whatever, and if nobody's here, then, you know, they're not, the opportunity's here for people to speak, so, and nobody's speaking, so.
I spoke to my neighbors. Nobody has a problem with it because, I mean, I think I'm improving it. I mean, I've already improved it 100% from when I bought it, because it was like,
Okay.
you know, 1950s, never been touched. But so now I'm adding on a garage and putting a front door on. So, and my neighbors across the street put a second floor on.
Okay,
just
you're
about-
all set.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, anybody ready on a motion or anything?
Yeah, is the motion to modify a previously granted special permit to allow for the addition to be 14 by 40?
Mhm.
I would say yes, Catherine.
All right, I don't have to go through everything again. So the standard is just not more detrimental than the previously granted? I'm a little unsure about what my standard is.
Yes, you've already made a ruling and found it. What you're really looking now is what she's proposing. I believe you could actually, in this case, say it's not a substantial change and everything will be all set. Or you can determine it is and it's not more detriment to the neighborhood.
All right, now I'm ready to go, Mr. Chairman. On the
Thank you.
petition of Don Burnham, seeking a modification of a previously granted special permit to convert from a 1 to 2 family with exterior changes, so to allow for her to modify the addition to a 14-foot by 40-foot addition rather than a 12-foot by 38-foot addition. I don't think it's a substantial change. I would vote in favor of the special permit. I move approval of the special permit.
I would second that.
Made and seconded. Roll call vote.
Ms. Slichty,
Yes.
Ms. Pratt,
Yes.
Mr. Nyman,
Yes.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes.
and Mr. Parisi.
Yes. You've heard our decisions, favorable. We'll put together some paperwork and get it to you. And Bill, you could stamp and sign those plans for me.
I will, thank you. And I need a member to write the decision, please.
You know what? I'm looking, it looks like I wrote the last one, so I'll do this one because I'm just
You
gonna,
can just, amend it like that.
yeah. All right, I'll do
That
it.
would be great. All righty. Moving on to our last hearing. It's only 8:41. We're getting better. The petition of 24 Norwalk Road LLC seeking a special permit under 1.9 to alter and expand a non-conforming structure, modified variance to allow construction of 2 dormers to existing roof at 24 Norwalk Road. I believe this is Attorney Glovsky.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't see myself, so I suspect everything's okay. Good evening. I am here tonight representing the 24 Norwalk Road LLC. Also on the call is Ross Perry, the owner, and Aileen Graff, the architect. The subject property is a 20,614. Pardon me?
I actually can't see this one.
We lost our chairman there. Here we go.
You
Joe,
ready?
you back? You were gone there for a minute.
We got you.
1 second.
Oh, now we can see you, Mark.
Yeah, we
Okay.
can see you now, Mark.
Okay. How am I looking?
You look pretty good, actually. For
Oh,
That's because you've given me time to sort of primp. In
Yeah.
any event,
powder up.
good lighting.
the subject property, as I was saying, is a 20,614 square foot lot in an R20 zoning district in Annisquam, with 166 feet, more or less, of frontage on the westerly side of Norrock Road. The property is improved with a 2-story, 4-bedroom, single-family house that is about 2,000 square feet in size and was constructed in 1900 or so, according to the assessor's records. This has been an unusual project because when I first looked at it, I thought I was dealing with just a non-conforming house. But in order to understand the relief that's being requested, I had to go back through the history and consequently ultimately determined that the appropriate relief in this case was an amendment of prior variances and a special permit. So I'll just give you the history in a nutshell. Ron and Joanne Beck acquired 24 Norrock Road in 1997. At that time, it included 2 dwellings, one small cottage on the corner of Pierce Avenue and the existing house that, as I said, was built about the turn of the last century. In 2001, the Becks obtained permission to divide the property on the basis of it having 2 dwellings. Special exceptions were granted at that time by the zoning board as per the decision that is attached to your package. Subsequently, the Becks sold 24 Norrock to the Perrys. At that time, 24 Norrock only had 16,380 square feet of land, and it was an existing non-conforming dwelling. In 2005, the Perrys came to the zoning board because they were planning to enclose a 3-foot by 3-foot portion of their front porch in order to enclose the entry. And that was only 10.1 feet from Norrock. So a variance was granted at that point, as 30 feet would otherwise have been required. Prior to that point, it seems as though the house was about 11 feet from Norrock. But in any case, because the property was granted a variance, it didn't qualify necessarily for a special permit to modify a non-conforming use, because as you know, you can only become.
Click the Add to Chrome button, then click Add Extension to continue.
Sorry about that. That's me.
Okay, I'll come back. In any event, they obtained the variance. Because they obtained a variance, we now need to do a couple things. One, we're modifying the variances that were previously granted, hopefully. And 2, we're still going to ask for a special permit to modify a non-conforming use. The situation's been slightly improved because in 2014, the Perrys acquired the property on the other side of 24 Norrock, which is 20 Norrock, and they subsequently lived in that house until they sold it last year. At the time they sold the property, they divided it in order to transfer about 4,000 square feet to 24 Norrock, which made Norrock now, this subject property, a conforming lot as far as lot area goes. So the situation has been slightly improved. What we're proposing now is to construct 2 dormers on the southwesterly and northeasterly sides of the 2nd story of the building. They're not going to be any closer to Norrock, and they're not going to be any higher than the existing roof peak. The sole purpose of the dormers, as you can see from the plans, that were filed with the application is to really allow for better utilization of the existing space in the house. It is going to be, the new space is going to be improved for storage and loft purposes. So we're not making a significant addition to the building. The Perrys have been in the neighborhood for years. They're downsizing from the house at number 20 to the house at number 24. And they have spoken to their neighbors. At this point, we don't believe that anyone has objections. So what we're asking for again is merely modification of the prior variances to allow for the 2 dormers and a special permit of finding to support our conclusion that what is being proposed will not be more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing house.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
2 comments. So we did receive one letter, I believe, that was distributed on the drive with regard to this project. Did everybody see that?
Yeah.
But before we get into that, I just want to say, I think this is a wonderful educational opportunity for us because we dealt with this very similar situation last week, as you recall, on the appeal. And the discussion was, this is exactly the way you do it. You apply to modify the variance, because now we look at it, we relook at the variance from, is this going to make it, would this make it not have given the variance? So when I ever opened up the packet and started reading this after our last meeting, I thought, this is the right way to do it.
I wanted to mail it to the other attorney, actually.
Yeah. So we'll move on with that. But the letter, does anyone have that letter?
Mr. Chairman, was that from Michael Chu?
Yeah.
Yes, I do have that letter. Dear Mr. Parisi, we received your letter concerning the petition of 24 Norwalk Road LLC seeking special permit 1.9 regarding the construction of 2 dormers on existing roof. We are neighbors diagonally across the street from the property at 27 Norwalk Road. After reviewing the application, I am writing to indicate that we have no objections to the proposed construction. Signed, Michael Cho.
Thank you. Okay, any questions by the board at this time? Or we'll listen, take some testimony? Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application in the audience, please raise your hand to be recognized. Anyone in favor? Being none, anyone in opposition to the application? Anyone in opposition? We see none, so there'll be no rebuttal. Discussion by the board, or are we ready for a motion?
I'm ready for Catherine to give a motion. I can
All right.
second.
On the petition of 24 Norwalk Road LLC, speaking of special permit to alter, expand, and non-construction, and to modify previously granted variances to allow construction of 2 dormers to existing roof at 24 Norwalk Road. I move approval of the special permit and the modification of the previously granted variances.
I would second both of those motions.
Okay, with motion made and seconded on the special permit, alter and expand, and also on the variant to modify the variances. Roll call vote.
Ms. Pratt,
Yes, I would vote in favor for all the relief requested.
Mr. Nyman,
Yes, for all the relief requested.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes, in favor of the modified variance and special permit.
Ms. Slickby,
Yes, I think even if this was originally asked for, I would have granted it. So I think it's a modest alteration. I don't think it's usually more detrimental than the existing nonconformity. So I'm voting yes for the special permit and modification of the variances.
and Mr. Parisi.
I also vote yes for both special permit and modification of the variances. Mr. Sanborn, if you'd stamp those plans and sign them for us.
I will, sir.
Ernie Glovsky, we appreciate a draft at some point.
I will draft it as soon as I can because I think the Parrys are eager to get going with their project.
Great.
Thank you
A
very much.
little faster than the last one we did, Mark.
Yeah, much faster.
Thank you.
You're
All right.
welcome.
Any board have anything else they want to bring up at this point?
I'm just glad it's over.
Next meeting, we only have 2 regularly scheduled hearings and 1 continued. So there's a little lull here, which will be nice. It's glad that we're done before 9. And I'm sure next
Lull
time
is good.
will be similar. So
Lull is good.
appreciate everybody's work, and I'm going to ask
Thank
for a
you,
motion
Joe.
to adjourn.
Motion, Mr. Chairman, I move for adjournment.
Second,
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. Roll call vote.
Mr. Diamond,
yes.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes.
Ms. Slickby,
Yes.
Ms. Pratt,
Yes, please.
Mr. Parisi.
Yes. Thank you. We are adjourned. Good night,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Well, good
Have a
night,
day,
everyone.
Everybody.
Thank you all and good night.
Take care.
See you
Good
next
weekend.
month.
Yeah.
You too.
Oh, gosh, I can't believe it's next month already.
Hey, 1 month closer to summer.
It's crazy.
That's
I'll take that.
Yeah.
one more month over this pandemic.
Right. All right, night,
Be
everybody.
safe out there.
You
Good
too.
night.